Welcome to the latest breaking conservatarian broadcast, where we prefer truth over narrative and principles over personalities, with me, Jeff Charles, your favorite conservatarian. And today, I'm going to be talking about Kamala Harris. She's all over the news. She's all over social media, all over the airwaves. She is former Vice President Joe Biden's VP pick. So she is going to be on the ticket. It's going to be Biden and Harris. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why this was actually a smart choice for Biden, for President Biden and his campaign. I'm also going to go over the reaction of the conservative movement to the nomination and some of the mistakes that we're already making. And I'll also go over some of the ways that conservatives can respond to this in a way that would actually help our cause. So let's get started. But actually, before we get started, I need you to go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell, hit that subscribe button, give this video a share, give it a like. That helps me out a lot. So I definitely appreciate it. So let's jump right in. So earlier on Twitter today, I posted that Kamala Harris is a smart choice disguised as a crappy choice. Because when you look at this on a surface level, which a lot of conservative pundits are doing right now, if you just look at it on a surface level and you don't think too deeply about it, it's easy to just conclude that she's a horrible choice. She's a horrible candidate for VP. I mean, we saw how she did in the Democratic primaries. And from the outside, it seems like this might not be that great of an idea. But when you think about it a little bit deeper, you're going to see that Biden's team made a very good choice. Now, I'm still not sure if Biden even knows that Kamala Harris is his VP pick yet, but his team obviously already knows. So hopefully they've informed him by now. But anyway, my main point with this, and is what you're going to need to remember as you watch this video, is that Kamala Harris was not picked to appeal to black voters. She was picked to appeal to white liberals. White liberal women specifically, but even moderate white women as well. But again, it's not just women, but I just think, but that is the main target here. Suburban white women is a voting bloc that Trump has had a lot of trouble winning over. He hasn't had very much success there, and it's not very clear that they are going to go for him when November arrives. So, and you can see that he's already trying to do certain things to try to appeal to white suburban women. But what's happening is that this voting bloc wants more of a return to normalcy. They want safety. They don't want huge controversy. They don't want a bombastic personality. They just want somebody who's just going to do the job, not rattle too many feathers, not put anything at risk. That's what they're looking for, and Kamala Harris kind of provides that. So Kamala Harris does not come off as overly threatening. She doesn't have much personality. That's something that's always come up. I mean, I always say, she has the personality of a dead snail. Now, that may not seem like an advantage, but I think in this day and age where a lot of suburban women aren't too happy with Trump because of his personality, because of his personality even more than his policy, somebody like Kamala Harris, who's more reserved, she's not too bombastic, something like that might appeal. Remember, they want more of a return to normalcy. They want things to calm down. They want a level of peace in political discourse. And somebody like Kamala Harris, who isn't out there, she's not wild, she can provide that. So that's yet another reason why she might appeal. Also, her prosecutorial record when she was Attorney General of California, that is going to be a subject of debate. That's going to be a huge subject of debate, especially among the black community, among black Democrats, among minorities. But guess who doesn't care about her prosecutorial record? White liberals. See, here's the thing. You see all this virtue signaling going on, right? About how black people are treated so horribly by the police and things like that. But they don't really care about this stuff. I mean, I know I sound like I'm mind reading. I know that I'm sounding kind of callous, but realistically, they're not out there in the streets with this. I mean, you've got like the far left progressive types who at least do a little bit more to pretend they care. But when it comes to just regular people in the suburbs, they don't care about this stuff. They like to sound like they do. So Kamala Harris provides that for them because they can say, hey, it's a black woman. I voted for a black woman, and they can use that to show how woke they are and how wonderful they are. But realistically, they're not going to care about her record as a prosecutor. They're not going to care that she locked thousands of black men up for nonviolent offenses. That's not really on their radar like that. That's just the facts there. So that is one of the reasons, or a few of the reasons, why Kamala Harris is a smart choice for Biden, because he appeals to the people that they really want to win over. As far as the black vote goes, he's already got that. He's going to get the majority of black voters. Now, I think that the controversy over Kamala Harris and her record as Attorney General will be more of a subject of debate in the black community. I think black women are really going to support her. Black men, I don't think as much. But I think that the result will be that they stay home. They're not going to go to Trump. They're going to stay home. But they're still going to turn out, but a lot of them are still going to turn out to vote, but they're going to be voting for Biden. So I expect to see less of a black voter turnout than even in 2016, because in 2016, the black vote didn't really show up like they have in the past. But the other point to consider here, too, is that we already know that Joe Biden, if he wins, is not going to serve more than one term. He may not even make it through one term. I mean, I've heard whispers of people saying that if he were to win, then they'll use the 25th Amendment to get him out of there, and then Kamala Harris is president. Or maybe he makes it through that first 4 years, then Kamala Harris runs and wins. At least that's what they would be hoping for. So I think that this is a very important pick here because of Joe Biden's condition if he were to win. It could very well be a reality that we would have Harris as our president. And again, that's yet another reason, that's another way that white liberals can virtue signal, because they know that this is a possibility, and then they can say that they supported the first female president and the first black female president. So there's just something to watch out for. But I really want to get into how conservatives are responding to this, because I'm already seeing our pundits making some really stupid arguments. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that their arguments are all wrong, but as far as persuasion goes, this is not going to work. And there are some reasons why, and some of you aren't going to want to hear this, but if you watch this video, you're going to hear it anyway. So you've already seen me allude to it on Twitter, but I'm going to be elaborating on what I've been tweeting. I purposely didn't explain the full thing because I wanted to do this later. So the first thing that we're seeing here is we're seeing a lot of conservatives coming out and talking about her record as a prosecutor, locking a lot of black men up for drug offenses, nonviolent offenses, extending their sentences, and in one case, she even withheld evidence that could have exonerated somebody who was on death row. So she's done some pretty horrible and corrupt things as Attorney General in California. But the problem here is that conservatives don't have much room to talk, especially since we always back the blue. And here's the thing, there is a difference between backing the blue and then backing the blue no matter what. And what I'm about to say, here's my only disclaimer that I'm going to make on this. I'm going to make some general terms. And if what I say does not apply to you, then don't come whining to me about it. It means that I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about the people to whom this applies. So there's a saying that we have, and I have my own variation of it. If it doesn't apply, then don't cry and let it fly. So if I'm talking about what a lot of conservatives believe about our justice system, if you personally don't believe that, then don't come at me saying, oh, no, we don't all believe that. I know that not all. Nobody who is being intellectually honest is actually going to think that I'm talking about all conservatives. Just like none of you complain when I say progressives in general without qualifying it, right? Okay, so we got that. We're good. Okay, we're good. All right, so the conservative movement has a tendency to defend the police no matter what. And I don't care what you say, Kamala Harris, for all intents and purposes, she was law enforcement. So she may not have been doing the arresting, but she did the part that comes after somebody gets arrested, and she did the prosecuting, and her office did horrible things to black people. To parents too. She locked up parents if their kids didn't show up to school. So she is the very definition of statist. But the problem, And Sonny Johnson, she pointed it out on Twitter. Some people got mad. I'll read it to you. She said, "The problem the right has now, you can't argue effectively against Kamala to Black America because most of you agree with her." For decades, the conservative movement has very much been about what they call law and order. And they were very much in favor of people being arrested for drugs and thrown in cages. We had the war on drugs. And yes, there were Democrats who supported that too, but who is more likely to defend our justice system? It's always been people on the right who basically claim that they don't like government. Government doesn't function the way it should, except for our justice system, which never discriminates based on race, whose policies never have racially disproportionate racial outcomes that are based on skin color rather than on other things. Now, do I believe that the entire system is racist and that everybody in the justice system is racist? No, I don't. I don't take that to the extent that progressives do. But the notion that there aren't racial disparities that can't just be explained away by other means is pretty absurd. I mean, when you look at the evidence. But we've always defended it. The war on drugs had a disproportionate impact on the Black community, despite the fact that Black people do not commit drug offenses more than any other race. So that's just one example. That can be for another video. I'm not going to go too deeply into that, but we have always, on our side, we have defended that. Now, I will say that there's been a lot of change in that mindset. A lot of us have moved away from that, what I call the boomer con mindset, which always supports the justice system and always supports the police, to actually questioning our justice system and questioning the police. There's not this knee-jerk reaction as much as there used to be. However, that stigma is still there. We haven't gotten out of that yet. It's going to take a while. Plus, that boomercon mindset is the one that gets the microphone. You remember in my previous video, I talked about how people on the fringes, they're not necessarily louder, but they're the ones that are given the microphone. So on the right, it's not very likely that you're going to see a whole lot of pundits arguing against this unless it's for a political purpose, like what we see right now. A lot of like the people who are talking about it, like your Matt Walshes, you've got your Larry Elders, you've got your others who support policies like stop and frisk, who back the blue no matter what. And again, I'm gonna differentiate here between back the blue and back the blue no matter what, because people were hitting me up on Twitter like, hey, I back the blue, but that doesn't mean that I back bad police officers. Fair enough. I believe you. I've seen that you'll call that out. Unfortunately, you're not quite the majority yet. We're getting there. But the other voices drown you out still, because that is that is what the establishment wants to push, rather than people who take more of a libertarian approach to it like I do, me, myself, and others. There should be no reason why people should be thrown in jail for years because they were caught with marijuana, or really any other drug, in my opinion. Again, that's another video. But since we have that stigma with us, nobody's going to listen to us talk about how horrible Kamala Harris is because she locked up thousands of Black men for nonviolent drug offenses. Now, I do hear people saying, oh, well, we're just pointing out the hypocrisy of the left because they're all about defunding the police, and then they appointed Kamala Harris. You are 100% right. But the problem is that there is a debate on the left about that right now. There are people on the left who are saying, I don't want Kamala Harris because of what she did in California. Now, those people can be believed. Like Tulsi Gabbard brought that up during the debates, and you know why people listened to her? You know why she was able to knock Harris out with bringing up her record? Because people actually believe Tulsi Gabbard when she says that she has a problem with people being locked up for nonviolent offenses. Conservatives, I hate to say it, but nobody believes you. Now, there may be individual conservatives who might have leftist friends who have these conversations. They'll believe you because they know you. And if you're in that situation, then definitely talk about it, because you already have that level of credibility with the people in your life, whether they're friends or family. But I'm talking more on a macro level here. Like, nobody believes the conservative media or the conservative movement when we say that we have a problem with what she did, because I mean, we weren't saying anything when she was doing it, right? I mean, nobody was. I mean, you had people on the left saying stuff about it back then. We weren't. So again, I think that's going to change. I think over the next decade, there's going to be enough of a shift to where we can point out that type of hypocrisy and be taken seriously. But right now, it's just not that great of an argument for us. It doesn't mean that we can't talk about it. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about it. But just know that that's not going to be our most effective argument. Honestly, I think the best thing to do in this regard is let the people on the left take care of that. I mean, when your enemy is destroying himself, don't interrupt. Let him do it. Because they are having that debate. The moment that she was announced, I'm seeing all kinds of black Democrats, black whomever. I'm seeing all kinds of progressives saying, what about her record on prosecuting people? We're trying to defund the police, but you want to have Kamala Harris potentially be the president someday. So that's already happening. So the second argument that I'm seeing is kind of special. They're bringing up Kamala Harris's lineage. She descends from slave owners, and somehow Conservative Inc. thinks that this is going to knock her out. Oh, now we're really pointing out hypocrisy because they're putting somebody as vice president whose ancestors owned slaves. Now, during the Democratic primaries, this is where this really came to light. I think it was maybe something that her father alluded to when he was talking to reporters or at some event, I can't remember what, but her father's Jamaican. And obviously they had slavery in Jamaica, and her family was apparently a part of that. So they're basically using this to say, oh, well, the left are hypocrites because, they're putting her up there as VP, but her family owned slaves. So here's the answer to that. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. To those who are making that argument, nobody cares, including you. You don't care either. Because if it came out that Trump's family descended, or that Trump descended from slave owners, you wouldn't care. And you know what? Neither would I. Nobody cares. Now, obviously, Trump's family, there's no chance of that happening because I believe his family came from Germany after slavery was already over. But still, I mean, hypothetically, even if that were the case, none of us would care. And nobody on the left is going to care. Nobody cares. Except maybe, the slaves that worked under her family back in the day. But, they're gone. So here's the thing. When we talk about the hypocrisy here, it's a little bit misplaced because you don't have a widespread thing about people descending from slaves the way, at least not the way that the right has portrayed it. We always act like people on the left are saying, well, white people living today are responsible for slavery and Jim Crow. You can't find anybody who actually said that. Maybe some people on the fringe, but again, that falls under the microphone principle. Just because somebody has a big microphone doesn't mean that they represent the rest of the group. So when I brought that up, people say, well, what about reparations? So that's really what they're getting to. And I understand that. I understand why, because they think that they have a misconception about what reparations are and how that would be administered if it ever came to pass, which it probably won't. But the thing is that first off, Kamala Harris is for reparations. So even though she descends from slaves, nobody cares. Like there was that report on Mitch McConnell who opposes reparations, but has ancestors who were slaveholders. Now that was disgusting, right? I mean, Mitch McConnell, his stance on reparations has nothing to do with his family. He doesn't support slavery. Who cares what his ancestors did? It's completely irrelevant. And I think that those who brought that up in response to what I was saying, that was a good point. However, reparations doesn't involve having every white person write a check to black people. That's not what it's about. Now, you can still disagree with it, but I think it's important that we understand what this issue is actually about. And I will do a more complete video to educate you guys on what the actual reparations argument is. I used to be totally against it. Right now, I'm a little bit more open to it, depending on how it's rolled out. But the idea is that reparations isn't designed to hold just white people accountable for what happened back then. It's about holding the government responsible because the government is what did this. It's why the government had to pay reparations to Japanese Americans after they locked them up in internment camps. So this isn't about white people paying for reparations, especially if they were to roll out reparations in the form of maybe tax breaks, maybe certain programs designed for education for descendants of slaves. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that it can happen that doesn't involve white people just writing a check and having to pay a ton of money for it. So the notion that Kamala Harris's ancestry is important is absurd. It has no bearing on anything at all. And honestly, again, we make ourselves look really stupid by bringing this up. I mean, even people on the left, I think it's silly. Like she can't control who she descends from. And on top of that, she's actually for reparations. So who cares who she descends from? So from a leftist point of view, it's silly. And from a conservative point of view, it's also silly. So those are two arguments that I'm seeing come out. And that's what I'm seeing from the pundits. That's what they're saying. It's dumb. It's ridiculous. We're not going to win anybody over that way. We're not going to get anybody to stay home or to come over to us by using those arguments, because the first one about her record as Attorney General, we don't have really a leg to stand on yet. Not as much as I would like. Now, going back to that, I can say that, people who say, hey, I've never supported this stuff. Well, okay, maybe you individually do, but the movement itself does not, because we're still in that back the blue, no matter what mindset in a lot of cases. So I'm looking forward to that changing. We saw that with George Floyd. Yes, there was that little fringe group who still wants to make it sound like it was George Floyd's fault, but most people agree that the officer was wrong. So I'll leave that there. But the thing is that there are other areas that conservatives can criticize Kamala Harris for. Like I mentioned, she withheld evidence that could have exonerated a death row inmate. The conservative movement does not have a history of supporting that. When it comes to blatant corruption, none of us are defending it. When it comes to her views on abortion, she is very pro-abortion. Not just pro-choice, she is pro-abortion, like very much on board with it. She made a statement that if she were to become the president of the United States, she would require each state that is putting forth a legislation that is against abortion, she would require them to run that by her desk first before they could even pass that legislation into law. Now, we're talking about statism here. Like, this is statism to the extreme. This is straight tyranny. For the president of the United States to be able to dictate what legislation a state decides to implement, that's insane. If that had come from somebody on our side, people would be flipping out. So that's another area. She's also very much open borders. She compared ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, she compared that agency to the KKK. Now, you know how I get on conservatives when they pretend like Black Lives Matter is like the KKK? Yeah, it's stupid. And comparing ICE to the KKK is equally as stupid. ICE is mainly going after illegal immigrants who commit more crimes after they get over the border. That's not the KKK. I mean, that's just arresting people. I mean, it's arresting them and in some cases deporting them, because that is what they're there for. We have borders for a reason, and she does not want that to be the case. So she's very much open borders. And by the way, open borders policies disproportionately impact the African American community more than any other community in this country. So yeah, it has a racial disparity there. It is a racist mindset when it comes to immigration. There is also the fact that she just flip-flops all the time. And that's one of the things that killed John Kerry in 2004, running against George W. Bush. The guy couldn't keep a viewpoint on any one issue longer than 5 minutes. She's kind of the same way, and that is going to come out more. And if she doesn't solidify that, that's going to hurt her. So those are just a few things that we can actually criticize her on that are actually valid, that will actually have some weight behind it. There are far more. I just listed a few, but there will be more information that comes out because now she's more in the spotlight. So even though California has made it harder to look into her record as Attorney General by moving some things around, it's still there, but they've put up some obstacles when it comes to looking into that. I wrote about that I wrote about that last year sometime. But there will be more information that comes out about her. But I think that if we want to have a chance of really, if you really want to see Biden defeated, you got to use the right arguments. You got to use arguments that will actually land. And the ones that we've started using so far, they're not going to land. They're just not. So that's pretty much what I want to say about that. I'm sure there'll be more that comes up. But in the meantime, please subscribe. Please share this video. Please give it a like, and check out the new Breaking Conservatarian podcast. I'll put links to that in the show notes. But yeah, definitely give us a follow, give us a subscribe if you like more audio content, or if you know people who do, then hit them with that link. Thank you, and you guys have a wonderful day.